I trained for a scenario like this my entire life. But it's worse than anything we could have imagined.
The map behind me right now shows how quickly a weaponized version of smallpox will spread. Patient 0 is infected in W1. Rapidly, the infection spreads across the whole of London. Within a very short amount of time, first the country, then Europe, then the entire world is infected. Society, as we know it, collapses in just a few short days. Ominous as that all sounds, don't worry, it's just the setup for The Division. Tom Clancy's Division, to give it its full title, is an online, third-person, role-playing shooter. The action takes place in a post-pandemic, devastated Midtown Manhattan. In the fiction of the game, the smallpox virus is spread via infected banknotes. As the notes are passed from person to person, so is the illness. Order breaks down in New York City as death and disease spread. Criminals escape from prisons, militias arm themselves, cats marry dogs, and some very, very naughty boys and girls rule the streets.
Every criminal group that we've been dealing with is controlling most of these neighborhoods.
The player assumes the role of a Division agent, a secretive organisation of tough guys and girls tasked with the job of bringing order to the chaotic Big Apple. The player achieves this by shooting bad guys who have a penchant for wearing hoodies. I never did get my Scouts Outdoor Survival badge, and weirdly by nicking things that you find lying around in the game, or in the parlance of the world, looting. This combination of shooting and then looting is at the heart of the game, and it's primarily how the player manages to level up, a big part of the role-playing experience. Not all New Yorkers that you meet are bad guys. Found items can be especially helpful when you meet innocent civilians. In combat, using cover is crucial. Hide behind a vehicle or wall and pop around to lay fire on a target and wear down its health until it expires. Some enemies aren't as smart as they could be, seemingly running without a care in the world at the player, making that old mistake of bringing a baseball bat to a gunfight. Okay, time to try out multiplayer in The Division.
Warning, hostile presence detected.
There's a big focus on combat with teammates, and here it's useful to take advantage of the unlockable skills like tech and medical. Bringing these different skills to bear as it all kicks off will no doubt play a big part of multiplayer encounters. Missions can be attempted single player or co-op with online teammates. Player versus player combat occurs in the Dark Zone, and this is where the rare and unusual loot will be found as well.
Not anyone could hold it. Now it's in no man's land.
You can interact with quite a lot of the environment. Opening and closing car doors, shooting through them. As with all RPGs, the more bad guys you take out, the more items you discover, and the more missions completed, you gain XP and your character levels up.
Dispatch, situation outside is now under control.
Now let's rebuild our base. Go on in and have a look around.
Your base of operations is where you tool up for missions, upgrade kit, and gain intel. If you played a certain sci-fi shooter designed by Bungie, this sort of setup will be familiar. You know what, something just occurred to me. It's kind of like Gangs of New York, with fewer stovepipe hats and a lot more machine guns.
Warning, hostile forces approaching.
One departure from games like Destiny is The Division's real-world setting. You won't find any space zombie bad guys in this game. The AI-controlled enemies represent different gangs or groups with differing weapons and abilities. These factions include ex-cons from Rikers Island, private military contractors, and rioters. The list goes on. Whoa, dudes with flamethrowers. Don't get too close to that. The cleansers, for instance, are trying to wipe out any sign of the infection through the judicious application of fire. wandering around with a container full of flammable liquid on their back provides a tempting target for the player. By anchoring the game so heavily in the real world, though, I think it's limiting its appeal a little bit, because most of the bad guys just look like extras from a Death Wish movie. They have none of the extraterrestrial, exotic appeal of Destiny's villains and none of the half-rotten scariness of any number of zombie games. I don't know, call me old-fashioned. I just think there's something a bit more exciting about taking out angry ETs with ASBOs as opposed to the shooting wave after wave of potty-mouthed generic thug. The Division is innovating in terms of its control setup, though. So what this gaming rig has attached to it is a bit of eye tracking kit. This kit's called IX from a Swedish company called Tobii. These lights project near infrared into the player's eyes. The cameras on the bar pick up on the reflection of that light off the eye to calculate exactly where on the screen the player is looking. Get used to the eye tracking really quickly, it's quite seamless. This is actually really quite natural. All you have to do is just look around the screen and stuff happens that's supposed to happen. If I just look around, instead of having to use the stick to look around, just using my eyes does it. If I open the map, for instance, I look at points of interest on the map, just by looking at them with my eyes, they highlight. And the eye tracking will work in combat as well. So let's see if we can find some bad guys to have a word with. Okay, it's a cover shooter, so of course, grab some cover first of all. Now, when I look at the targets, it marks them. So this guy's marked. Hit the sight. And pour some fire on him. It's a gimmicky feature for sure, but it does work. It's difficult to get a real idea of what the Division's going to be like before the servers are switched on and the gaming public is let loose in its devastated version of the city that never sleeps. We're told there's going to be a host of DLC planned, and it's really likely that this game will evolve dramatically once people start playing it in earnest.
Hostile forces approaching.
Here's something that's worth pondering. There are tons and tons of movies, books, comic books and video games which are concerned with apocalyptic or end-of-the-world scenarios, whether it's caused by zombies chomping people's faces off, or disease, or a giant war. And they say that art reflects the spirit of the age in which it's made. If that is the case, what does this particular game and games like it say about the age in which we live right now? Ooh, deep!
These are my people. This is my city.